even that might be like just a line too far. I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah.
That's a no. I'm sorry. And hello, I'm Colin. Welcome back to the C&C Talks podcast, episode 24 of season 3. And it's been a long time, so just in case you've forgotten, we release episodes every week, talk about politics, world events, sports. Taping this Thursday evening, September 26th, 2024, about 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. And might be wondering where Charlie is. Charlie is still recovering. He'll be back very, very soon. So we once again have one of our producers, Zach, here as a co-host this week. And Zach, I was gonna say it's been a while since you've come on and co-hosted the show because it was back in I think late July that you did it the last time. But really, that was only something like 3 episodes ago. If you look
Yeah.
at the number of episodes we've done, but regardless, happy to have you here, filling in for Charlie today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here again. It feels, even though it's been a while since I was last on an episode of the show, it feels like I've been on quite a lot with the Olympics and with the debate live streams as well.
I've been on a bunch of live streams, and frankly, like everything that we're going to be talking about is like half of what's gone on since you last co-hosted. Because boy, a lot has gone on. However,
Yeah.
uh, and we're going to be talking about several things that are a few weeks old. We've only chosen the things from a few weeks ago that we feel are still relevant to talk about right now. And so, what we're going to start with is something we've been promising to lead with for a couple weeks now, and that is that Zach, we are unfortunately, I feel like just as a country in general, pretty numb to anti-Semitism. Right? It's been
Abs-
going on for a long time, and there's continuously been anti-Semitic acts coming from the far left, coming from the right as well. It's pretty much constant, but what we're I feel like not really necessarily used to here in America is something that we have going on right now, and that is just outright Nazism.
yeah.
Right? Now, what do I mean here? Tucker Carlson had a guest on his program, whatever you want to call it these days, whatever Tucker Carlson hosts at this
Yeah.
point, and it's what this person is saying is outright Nazism. If we're being honest, that's just what it is. There's no other way to put it. Comments about how Churchill was the real villain in World War II. Comments praising Hitler, right? This is not normal, and I feel like it's becoming more mainstream in the GOP, right? Tucker Carlson's maybe not as mainstream as he used to be, but we'll get
No.
to like people like Mark Robinson in a few minutes. We'll talk about him. There's lots of people
Yeah.
in the GOP that are just outright promoting Nazism and Holocaust denialism, which is super dangerous because it's not Holocaust denialism is generally in its most common form. It's not just saying that the Holocaust didn't happen. It's in also saying the Holocaust didn't happen and Jews are essentially leading us to believe that it did happen so
Yeah.
that they can,
Yeah.
make some they can control the world in some way, and it's
Yeah.
continuing to lead into these anti-Semitic narratives. So it's more dangerous than just saying the Holocaust didn't
Yeah.
happen because there's just a lot of people that seem to be Holocaust apologists at this point, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's different to say the Holocaust didn't happen. I mean, that's one thing. That's bad for a different reason. But then to sort of turn the narrative back on Jewish people and blame them for creating the Holocaust as like a story,
Yeah,
that's extremely dangerous. I
it's
mean, that
extremely dangerous. And like if you look at this person that was on Tucker Carlson's show, like saying, "Oh yeah, no, Hitler wasn't actually the bad guy in World War II. He's been unjustly blamed for a bunch of things. It was just a land dispute." And then I believe this person's also said in a series of tweets, I believe, that um it's the reason that it's Churchill's fault is because he let a bunch of people die when Hitler was willing to negotiate, and as long as they could find a solution to the quote unquote Jewish problem. Well, first ask, what Jewish problem? What's
what
the
was
problem that you think was there with Jews? I think that the only problem, the only Jewish problem, was that Hitler was trying to kill all of them, and that in large part that is what World War II was about. In addition, of course, it was about the fact that he was trying to take over all of Europe
yeah,
and was invading pretty much every country there, and they had to stop him at some point and go to war with him because otherwise he was going to take over the entire continent. Look,
yeah,
I generally think war is a bad thing. I generally think loss of life is bad, and we should do everything we can to stop that from occurring. But there's times when war is necessary. There's times when things cannot be solved through simple diplomacy, and World War II is undeniably one of those things. And I can't even believe that in the year 2024, this is something that we're still debating.
yeah, it's completely ridiculous. And it's I think it's really just uh, a symptom of the sort of rise of conservative everything that we're seeing very recently. I mean, all across Europe. It sort of started in 2016, I would say, with Trump, and the rest of the world kind of took after that. I mean, Trump's reach was quite far-reaching, I guess you could say. I mean, there was that. You remember that trucker group in Canada, right, of Canadians that were MAGA supporters. Like this
Oh
was
yeah.
a wave of conservatism that was um just completely unprecedented. Uh and I really think it's that. I mean, it's it's just and also I would say it's just an attempt by the right to sort of uproot the status quo and just basically deny everything that's happening because people already don't trust what's going on. I think they see this as, I think the very far right people, the Nazis, see this as their chance to sort of, hey, maybe we can actually convince some people now because it's been a long enough time since 1945 that, it's not quite top of mind for everybody. And, you know, quite a lot of the country is just sort of has this opinion of F the establishment. So, um, and yeah, so I think that's sort of what it's about.
Yeah. Now, moving on to, I think, another place where the right has gone to just dangerous territory is this attack that we're seeing from the JD Vances specifically of the world, and it's more than just him. It's a bunch of people on the right. We saw Trump spread this lie at the debate. This thing about Haitian immigrants and how they are eating people's dogs and eating
Oh,
people's cats or whatever, that they're in this town Springfield, Ohio. How
yeah,
they're eating people's pets, which of course there is zero evidence to back this up. And
yeah, none at all.
everybody here living on Earth One knows that
And
because
and
it's absurd. It's absurd. But there's
it,
now a very sizable portion of the GOP base that deeply and truly believe somehow that Haitian immigrants are eating people's pets, and it's dangerous. There have been bomb threats now in Springfield, Ohio. There have been planned Klan rallies there, right? The Klan literally is wants to go there. There have hospitals have had to close, schools have had to close because of these threats of terrorism against the people of Springfield, Ohio, specifically the Haitian immigrants that live there, and all because of this racist, xenophobic lie spread by people like JD Vance. And frankly, JD Vance has been inciting terrorism against his own constituents. Let's not forget. Sure, he's running for vice president of the United States, but he's also a sitting United States senator from the state of Ohio. And
Yeah.
uh, he is directly responsible for these threats in
And
Springfield, Ohio. And
not like he
when,
he believes this either.
no, it's
He's
not.
openly stated that it was a lie. He's
Yeah,
openly stated that it
he said he
was a
doesn't have evidence, and that if he needs to make up stories to essentially feed his narrative, then that's what he's going to do, and it's on the media to fact check him. But then he gets really mad when the media fact checks him. Look,
and and
it's a lie. He knows it's a lie. He knows he made up this story. It is your responsibility as a person with influence and power to make sure that what you are saying is truthful and helpful to the conversation, is not going to get anybody killed, is not going to incite violence against other people. You have a responsibility as somebody who is a United States Senator and hoping to become the Vice President of the United States to not do that. And he failed. Instead, he's knowingly just made up lies in what seems to be an attempt to incite violence against his own constituents. And hey, JD, while we're making up stories, how about does this mean now that the couch thing is fair game? Can we talk about that again?
well, this
Because
is kind of the
it's all
phenomenon.
it's a created story, and guess what? It's less dangerous than the Haitian immigrant story because nobody is going to get killed over whether or not you had sex with a couch.
Yeah. And this is kind of the very unfortunate phenomenon of politics right now, which is that Democrats constantly get held to a higher standard. Now that is not a way to say that the Democrats should go out saying lies just because the Republicans are, but it gets it gets represented as, oh, this is just what the Republicans do, and
Exactly.
this is what they do, and it's unfortunate, but whatever. But the second a Democrat says anything that's slightly dramatic, oh no, the Democrats have, oh no,
Yeah.
this person is terrible. Uh, the Democratic Party isn't fit. You know,
Like we've become
Kamala
numb to
Harris
it
is
on the right.
terrible.
And we
Hmm.
can't. We cannot become numb to the fact that a sitting United States senator is inciting bomb threats against his own constituents.
And it's sad right now that the Republican campaign strategy right now, Trump campaign strategy, is literally just say anything, true or false, mostly false it tends to be, that you think will help you.
Throw
Literally,
everything against the wall and hope that something sticks.
yes, that's
And
literally what the strategy
some too,
is.
because you know what? There's Haitians that can vote.
Yeah, you've just alienated an entire group of people. Good job.
Yeah. I mean,
Good.
it's insane. And then, you know what? Adding another layer to this, Project 2025, the group that um created Project 2025 was the Heritage Foundation. Turns out the
Yes,
founder of the Heritage Foundation reportedly um bragged to his friends about how he once, I think when he was in college, killed a neighbor's dog with a shovel because of course.
that's just, I mean, what this theme of Republicans killing pets is just so
Yeah,
bizarre and concerning.
yeah.
It's so weird.
It's not the Haitian immigrants here, folks, doing this.
No, no,
It's the Republicans.
yeah.
Dr. Oz,
Yeah.
RFK. George Santos had something with puppies. I don't think it was that. Kristi Noem.
Well, he stole them
Mitt,
or
yeah,
something.
Mitt Romney.
Mitt
Who am I
Romney?
missing? There's got to be others that I'm missing.
What did Mitt Romney do?
He left his dog on top of his car or something.
What?
I think so.
What
This is
the
many,
hell?
many years ago. Not nearly as big of a deal as some of the other ones. It's a constant theme with them. And of course, now, I mean, frankly, we should have seen this coming as soon as they started saying that the Haitian immigrants were, eating cats and dogs. It should have become immediately obvious to all of us that there was somebody on the right that was killing their neighbors' dogs because they don't have any original ideas, so they just say that the Democrats do have done whatever they've done.
Oh, and you forgot Christy Nome.
I did I? I thought I said her, maybe not. Yeah, Christy Nome. I mean,
Probably
I
the
thought
worst.
we've seen the worst of the dogs, but apparently we're not limiting it to killing our own dogs now. We're killing our neighbors' dogs on the right.
Yeah, it's
So
so disgusting. Like, genuinely, how is it that all of these people are concentrated in the Republican Party? If you think about how common it is to find somebody who would just willingly kill their dog or a neighbor's dog or just kill an animal, or,
yeah,
in the case of RFK, drive 5 hours to cut the head of a dead
yeah,
whale off. Like, what the heck? These people are freaks of nature. How are they all in power?
yeah, and I think it says a lot about like who the Republican Party is that they continue to attract this
Yeah,
type of person.
yeah. Just the slimiest, most terrible
Yeah.
people. Like,
Like I'm not saying that there aren't terrible people on the left. There are. But
absolutely. It's a different
it
type of terror.
like it's a requirement to be in the Republican Party that you have to have done something truly horrific and awful.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because nobody who's not horrific and awful would be willing to work with these people. Um, like who is not, on that level of awful would be
Yeah.
willing to work with these people, even if they were a Republican. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a good point. Moving on to horrifically awful. Zach, I think we're going to talk about a story that I could have never possibly imagined I would ever be talking about when we started this podcast. Um, like truly, the news has been wild the last couple of years, but there's still times when you say something and you're just like, that's real. That's not an SNL sketch. Um,
yeah,
and in this particular instance, it's about the sitting lieutenant governor of North Carolina, who is also the GOP nominee for governor of North Carolina in this election cycle. His name's Mark Robinson, and we already knew before the latest scandal from Mark Robinson that he was a terrible person.
yeah,
And like even for Republicans, a really awful person, a Holocaust denier. He's made some really awful comments about women, about Jews, about Muslims, about the LGBTQ community. Just some really awful comments in general. Um,
yeah,
so when we heard, oh, there's going to be some explosive story out about Mark Robinson that there's a good chance it's going to cause a bunch of his staff to quit, which is true. A whole ton of his staff quit. Um, we're like, wait, so it must be really, really bad then if it was if it's too far for all these people that are still standing by him through everything else that he's said and done. And that we were right. It was really that bad, according to the CNN investigation, and again, I promise you, this is not an SNL sketch. This is real life. They found comments that he had made on a message board on a porn website called Nude Africa. Um,
yeah. That's just a hero, like just red flags uh all around.
yeah. So you
Yeah,
might be wondering, oh, okay, well, we've already seen some scandals about how he watches a lot of porn while saying that porn is a sin or whatever. Okay, big deal.
he's a
Okay, but the
Republican.
comments that he made on the message board, were not strictly related to sexual matters. Some of them were related to sexual matters, and if you don't want to hear this, go ahead and skip ahead. But there were times when he talked about how he was spying on at, I believe it was a gym on the women's showers, um, which makes him a complete creep. And also how he has, I think, multiple times had sex with his wife's sister, which is that's got to make Thanksgiving pretty awkward. Now that
Yeah.
it's out there.
I mean,
But
on the other hand, not like if it's all consensual, okay. I mean, if you're, supposedly a Christian who, follows the Bible to a T, then, maybe some hypocritical stuff you're doing there, but
Exactly. Like, I mean, look, we're not here to judge what you do in the bedroom behind closed doors as long as it's consensual. But on one hand, another thing he did was he admitted that he really likes watching porn. He is very anti-transgender. Mark Robinson is, so a bit of a hypocrite there. Uh, like you said, bit of a hypocrite with the wife sister stuff. Also, even that might be like just a line too far. I'm sorry, dude.
yeah,
That's a no. I'm sorry. And then, but the spying on women, that is definitely not
definitely
consensual.
a no. That's
Um,
definitely
that's a big no. But what if I told you that somehow the worst comments that he made on the message board, Zach, were not sexual at all. Like when he wrote on it that he is a black Nazi.
which seems like a paradox, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But okay, yeah, I don't think that we should elect somebody the governor of North Carolina who's a black Nazi, or
Yeah.
really any sort of Nazi. Doesn't matter whether they're a black Nazi or a white Nazi or whatever. How about we just don't elect Nazis to the government? And remember, he is a
Yeah.
current member of of the government. But there's more. He's said, and this was I don't think this was on the porn message board, but he said before that he's not in the KKK because they let black people join, but if he was in the KKK, they're called MLK, Martin Lucifer Coon.
Oh my
Um,
God.
that's bad. And let's also remember, Trump said that this guy was MLK on steroids. Donald
Yeah.
Trump has repeatedly endorsed this guy, called him like great, said that he's better than MLK.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the one other thing that seems very, very bad, is that on the porn message board, he said, "Slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I would certainly buy a few." And he also then wrote, "I'd take Hitler over any of that stuff that's in Washington right now." This is during the Obama presidency.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff he says is just so disgusting and genuinely confusing. Like he says, if slavery was around, he would buy a couple slaves. He would probably be a slave
Yeah,
if
yeah, I
slavery
know.
were.
His race, I don't know if he knows American history that well, but his race was not the enslavers.
No,
Um,
no. Um,
and
it it's confusing.
it's confusing, but it's horrifying. Like we should not ever be letting anybody near power ever again in this country that likes slavery, that likes Hitler. That's a
No,
no. That's a no.
immigrants that we've rejected as a society for very good reasons.
Yeah.
We
And
fought a war.
apparently the Republican Party wants to bring it all back. If you hear us say like the Republican Party wants to bring the country backwards, this is what we mean. We mean back to in an era where slavery was legal. Again, this isn't just one guy. This is Donald Trump endorsing this guy, and he
Yeah.
has yet to withdraw his endorsement from this guy.
And
It's
and may I
it's
remind our viewers that we fought a war to stop both of these things. The
yes.
US as a whole fought wars to stop both of these things.
You cannot
And
claim to be a patriot
yeah,
and support Mark Robinson.
yeah.
He goes against everything that America has stood for a very, very long time. Um, I mean, that's just who he is. But now let's get to the political aspect of this, though, because at this point, the question doesn't seem to be as much about whether Mark Robinson's going to win. It feels like that's a close to impossible task for him. Right? We've been surprised before. Right? Donald Trump won after the Access Hollywood tapes, but the question is, in North Carolina, does Mark Robinson, who's refused to withdraw from the race and is now past the deadline for that, does Mark Robinson bring Donald Trump down in North Carolina with him?
I'm
Because
crossing my
Donald Trump cannot win this election without winning the state of North Carolina.
I'm crossing my fingers, Colin. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real crisis for the Republican Party, and it's one that they completely brought onto themselves, by the way, because,
Yeah,
they pushed this guy to the top to be the Republican nominee for governor. So if he ends up taking them down, well, that's
completely
on
their.
them. That's on them. Maybe you shouldn't have endorsed the black Nazi. Just a thought.
I mean, the concerning thing is, I don't even know if this wouldn't have even made a difference in a state like, you know, Alabama or
In a state like Alabama, it might have gained him votes,
yeah,
honestly.
it might have gained him votes.
Ooh, a Nazi.
But they severely miscalculated uh North Carolina, which is trending blue.
Yeah, I'd call it a safe, firm purple state. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the one thing we forget about with North Carolina, because we've called it a swing state for straight elections, I think the one thing that we do forget when we look at them electorally is that the last time that they voted blue was 2008, and that was in a landslide victory for Obama. So, uh, the I believe the only time this century that North Carolina has gone blue is in a Democratic landslide. So, could Harris win it? Sure. I think it would be a huge state for her to get. I see why the Democrats are investing in it. I think she could win it. But let's not pretend that like this is some easy state for her to win. Right? This is a probably a harder state to win than every other battleground. Now,
I would
Mark
say it's
Robinson
slightly
absolutely hurts Donald Trump.
I would say it's a slightly red swing state right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, let's also remember they have two Republican senators.
Yeah.
So it's not like they've been voting blue at that level either.
Yeah.
They do have a Democratic governor who's pretty popular there. He's term limited this year. Attorney General Josh Stein, Attorney General of the state of North Carolina, he's running against Mark Robinson in this race. So it's a battle between two people that have been elected statewide um, in North Carolina. So it will be an interesting election, but I think Stein should probably win it. I think the question is more just about the at the ticket. Let's talk about another big scandal in more local politics. This time moving up the East Coast to New York City, and their mayor Zach is
Oh yeah.
yikes.
He made a big oopsie.
Uh, yeah,
Um
called crimes, and that's why Eric Adams has been indicted for bribery and fraud, specifically regarding campaign donations uh, from outside the United States that he took
yeah.
in his
What is it with New
2021
York?
mayoral campaign.
Like
Um,
what is it with New York though? Like we've had Bob Menendez, we've
no,
had
that's New Jersey. He's New Jersey.
oh yeah, that's New Jersey. Well, in that area sort of.
Yeah, sure.
Um
Yeah,
we've had Bob Menendez, George Santos, and now Eric Adams. Like that's
Andrew
three
Cuomo.
politicians. And yeah, and yeah, yeah.
We'll get to Cuomo in a second, by the
Yeah,
way.
we'll get to him in a second. But like, why is this area filled with people taking bribes from other countries? Like, what the
Yeah,
heck?
yeah. Oh, I thought you were just talking about crime more in general. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think that was the issue with Cuomo, but
No,
uh,
no. There were other.
certainly an issue. Yeah, I mean, I think the better question is just why can New York not elect a competent mayor? Um,
That doesn't
oh,
seem to be possible for them in the
the
last few.
last four mayors of New York City are Eric Adams, Bill de Blasio, Michael Bloomberg, and Rudy Giuliani.
Oh God.
That's not a good group of people.
Yeah.
By the
No,
way,
it's
just
really.
quick, I love to keep receipts, specifically a receipt from Nate Silver, who back in early 2022 predicted that the next presidential nominee on the Democratic Party after Joe Biden would be Eric Adams. Nate,
Fun.
how's that prediction turning out? Just as good as your 2022 Senate forecast did? Okay, great. It's a good year for you, Nate, 2022.
Good to see you're just as irrelevant as you have been.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not a great prediction from him. Now, what comes next? Eric Adams is going to be arraigned in court. As of this recording, he has not yet resigned. Pressure is growing for him to resign, um, from lots of people within the Democratic Party in New York. But the question then would be, who becomes mayor after that? And I don't know exactly how it works with a special election because regardless, there is a general election there for mayor in just about 13 months. So, which Democrats get their names in that race?
There's one guy who
There's one
really
who,
wants it.
there's one guy who really, yeah, who seems to really want to get into the race. I don't think he really understands that
How
nobody else
politics.
wants him to get into the race. His name is Andrew Cuomo.
And it's just hilarious that he is trying to do this. I mean, does he expect us to forget everything that's happened the last like 4 years? Like
Yeah, I
for
think that's his plan, actually. Yeah. Uh, Yeah, he should not become the next mayor of New York City. To be fair, I don't know who should become the next mayor of New York City because I would also go out on a limb and say that anybody that would be good at that job probably doesn't want that job, given,
yeah,
the
track record.
history of what's happened to New York City mayors politically after they leave that job.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, Rudy Giuliani, how's it going?
oh, he just got disbarred this week, so
Yeah,
it's going great for him.
really great for him.
Sure you heard the term disbarred too, and thought it had something to do with a bar, probably whichever one he's been sleeping at for the last month.
Yeah, or
Um,
whichever one uh slammed into his head when he decided to be Trump's lawyer.
yeah, I mean, honestly, Trump's legal team to challenge the election this year might be better with that because Giuliani's not going to be on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Something that happened a couple weeks ago. We talked about it on a live stream, but that's presidential debate. Now that we've had a couple weeks to reflect on the debate, what would be your takeaways now? We now know, of course, that Trump will not do another debate. He's making up reasons why he won't. The other take on the right at the moment is that it was 3-on-1 because the moderators were against him, fact checked him, and they didn't fact check Harris. Here's the problem with that argument. Harris lied. They found that Harris made something like one lie during the debate. It was not fact checked. Trump made, I think it was like 30 and got fact checked on like 3 or 4 of them. And it was only the most egregious ones. It was the ones about like the Democrats executing babies and
Yeah.
the eating dogs and cats in Springfield. That's what he got fact checked on. Like the really big stuff. This was not a 3-on-1 debate. And I
Yeah.
love how the argument here from Republicans isn't that, oh, Trump shouldn't lie, or even Trump didn't lie. The argument is Trump should be allowed to lie and get away with it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really telling. What other takeaways do you have now that we're a couple weeks removed from this debate?
I mean, I think that just more and more we're seeing the fallout of Trump's performance. It was a serious blow to his entire campaign. I mean, we're seeing really just how much Harris just completely beating him at the debate is affecting everything. Polls are up for Harris. After the debate, this could not be related, but it could also be that we're seeing lots of people jumping to lots of celebrities jumping to support Harris. Um,
Sure.
and about the lie thing too. It's one thing to like lie about an economic or like sort of misrepresent an economic number or something. Maybe you
Or a
say,
plan, or a complete plan, like the basics of how tariffs work.
yeah, it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to say the Haitian immigrants in Springfield or Ohio are eating cats and dogs.
Yeah. Not all
Those
lies
are
are created
things.
equal. I don't even know exactly what the thing Harris was fact checked on was. It
Don't
was
know,
Trump,
but
of course, that misrepresented the tariffs. But
yeah,
not all lies are created equal. Some are some slight misrepresentations. Some are some just minor outright lies. Some of them are Democrats are executing babies.
yeah. I mean, here's the thing. What are you gonna so say I lie about an like the inflation rate.
Yeah.
Are you gonna remember the number 3.1 or whatever? Are you gonna really remember that number, or are you gonna
No.
remember that Haitian immigrants are eating cats and dogs
Yeah, I
in
think
Ohio?
that that's the thing I'd remember.
Like
So,
nobody really truly cares about what the exact inflation rate is. Like, nobody, not many constituents do, I would
yeah.
argue. or
I
at
mean, Trump
least
didn't even get fact checked about the whole Abdul thing during the debate.
Abdul. Like there were
Who's Abdul?
yeah, who is he? And also there were lots of lies that Trump made that weren't fact checked.
Yeah,
Like that one.
lots. Like the tariffs thing and
Yeah.
the Abdul thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like they really only stuck to the bigger lies.
yeah,
Um
I don't think it's productive in a debate to fact check every little thing.
no. No,
But I
because
think the
big
big
numbers.
things you have to.
You have yeah, especially the things that could be dangerous.
Yeah,
Like that could incite violence, which have incited violence.
yeah, exactly. No, you're right. By the way, vice presidential debate next week. Tim Walz, JD Vance, next Tuesday. Curious your thoughts on that, Zach. What you think's going to happen there?
I mean, I think it's going to be another massacre in favor of Tim Walz. I mean, we've already seen how awkward JD Vance is in general.
Yeah,
Nobody likes him, and his rhetoric seems to be uh literally just making up random things, sort of like Trump, except he's worse at it and nobody likes him. So,
yeah,
uh and people like Tim Walz. You know, I would think that the average Republican, I'm not sure about this, but just from my impressions, like may not like Tim Walz's policies, but how the heck do you not like Tim Walz as a
exactly. Yeah,
like
super, super likable. I think that that's, by the way, how Tim Walz is going to win the debate, right?
yeah,
Vice presidential debates, they don't matter as much as presidential debates to the extent presidential debates matter at all, but they're also, at least I think, to the extent that they do matter, it's less about policy because you're not really talking about your own policy because generally presidential and vice presidential candidates differ on policy, but it's not going to be the vice president's policy that's going to be primarily instituted. So
yeah,
it's primarily there's a lot of stuff about character, right? J. Vance inevitably try to go after Walls for like being an assistant coach and not a head coach for
yeah,
some reason. So I think Tim Walz, right? First of all, like we said about Trump, don't take the bait. I don't think Walls is someone that's easily baited, but also do find a way to defend yourself and like show the tactics that Vance is using. Point out why the rhetoric that Vance is using is dangerous, and then maybe and there's you can't just say this outright. You got to find a way to be carefully say this, but say something like, "Look, as unfortunate as it may be, JD Vance's running mate, Donald Trump, is of an age uh, where the chances that he may die in the middle of his term are higher than they would be for another candidate. And when you look at JD Vance, is this a guy that you
yes,
would want to be the president of the United States?
absolutely, absolutely.
I think when
That's
people look at
really
JD Vance,
fair.
like JD Vance on his own could not win a presidential election.
Yeah, no,
So
that's a really great point. That's a really
yeah,
great
so
point
you
that
got to be careful about how you're saying it because I think if you're attacking the presidential candidate's health on stage, especially if you're not giving him a chance to defend it. Not that that's something Republicans that haven't done about Biden numerous times, but I still think there's got to be careful about how you say it. But I think it's an important point to make. We'll see if he does, in fact, make it.
and another thing is like there's just much less real ammunition that you can use against Tim Wells. Like JD Vance he's an awkward guy. There's the couch thing that everybody's making fun of.
The donuts.
You know, the donuts. Like there's just everything about that man is ammunition to use against him in a debate. And there really isn't anything with Tim Wells. Like the assistant coach thing, seriously, like if that's the best you have, then
Yeah,
Tim Wells is winning this like with flying colors. So
exactly. I don't think Walls is a great debater. I mean, I don't think he's a
no,
bad debater. I just don't think he has a ton of experience with it. And I think
yeah,
Vance is better at debating than Trump. They're both taking it very seriously. They're both prepping. Trump didn't
yeah,
prep because Trump doesn't like prep. He finds that boring.
yeah.
Um, so what they called his prep, they disguised it as to him as policy time.
Hmm.
Um, treating it like a toddler. But so I think Walz should win, but I don't necessarily think it'll be the bloodbath that the presidential debate was.
Yes.
We got to move on because Donald Trump was nearly assassinated again. He was not actually shot at this time, but the Secret Service did find a gunman in, I think, the bushes at his golf club.
And it was much stupider than the previous one.
It was much stupider, but we now have, of course, first of all, very, very thankful that he's okay, right? Assassinations are no joke. Second of all, doesn't exactly look great on the part of the Secret Service.
No, not at all.
That they allow this to have it to be this close multiple times in the same summer. But
Yeah,
third of all, now Republicans are using this to say, well, Democrats are just inciting violence against Trump and against Republicans, and this has to stop, and they're the party of violence. Zach, how would you respond to this?
I would respond to this by pointing out the fact that both the shooters have been both conservatives
Yep.
and white males,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them have had any sort of affiliation with the Democratic Party. So what I would say is maybe you should, get your crap together and and stop having your party try and kill your presidential candidate.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I think it's a great point, right? These people looked both of them kind of mentally ill, probably because their politics looked like the type of person that was deeply troubled. Like especially the second guy bounced around from like supporting Trump to then supporting like a Nikki Haley Vivek Ramaswamy ticket, which would never happen because if you remember the Republican primary debates, those two hated each other's guts with a passion. So like that would never happen. Like his politics were kind of weird. And again, if you don't like it, maybe listen to what Democrats have been saying for years and don't let these guys have easy access to guns.
Yeah.
The first time that you guys are actually worried about people getting shot, the first time ever that you're worried about that is when your presidential candidate and cult leader almost gets shot.
Yeah.
Deal with the guns because that's what we've been saying for years. We've been saying that people are going to die. Your guy was possibly almost shot fatally multiple times, and you still won't do anything about it. But now you guys seem to actually finally care about the issue of gun violence. You seem to actually maybe now care only because it's your guy. All the other people that have died due to nope, who cares about them, of course.
Children who have died in classrooms.
Yeah, exactly. But then back to the Democrats are inciting violence. Again, not a Democrat either time that did this. It is not Democratic rhetoric. Now, if we want to talk about rhetoric that's incited violence, I don't know. How about we go look at the Republican Party? Let's go back to Springfield, Ohio right now and look at J.D. Vance's comments there about how the Haitian immigrants are eating the pets and how that's led to bomb threats that have caused hospitals to be evacuated and schools to be closed. Let's look at Trump's rhetoric on January 6th, the rhetoric that led to an insurrection attempt at the United States Capitol. Let's look at October of 2022 or September or whenever it was of 2022 when the sitting Speaker of the House was broken into and her husband Paul Pelosi was attacked with a hammer by a Republican who I believe was like a Fox News watcher, and then the Republicans after that spent the next few months mocking it, and that includes Trump and his son Don Jr., who decided to make fun of it by posting that his Halloween was a pair of underwear, the hammer, alluding to the fact that Paul Pelosi was apparently just at the that he got attacked by the hammer. Let's talk about May of 2022, Buffalo, the Buffalo shooting. Remember that one? The one where a white nationalist went into a supermarket and committed a mass shooting. Do you remember why he did that? It's because he saw on a certain show stuff about the Great Replacement Theory. Whose show was that? Tucker Carlson's Fox News show. What do we remember about Tucker Carlson? The Republicans invited him to speak in prime time at their convention this year.
Yeah.
The Republican Party spends their entire existence inciting violence. That's their thing.
Yeah.
And yet, we're now supposed to be gaslit into believing, oh, but it's the Democrats that are inciting a Republican to shoot Donald Trump. No, that's not. That just objectively has not happened.
Yeah, it's the whole thing, the whole argument is flawed, and it's honestly just they're so brainwashed. I mean, it's funny because they say the Democrats have been, brainwashed by the, deep state, or, whatever the whatever the conspiracy is. But the truth of the matter is these people are not seeing what's right in front of their faces. With that, literally their party is inciting violence on people who were doing nothing
Yep.
against them. And not only that, the people who are, trying to kill their nominee are part of their party.
Yeah, which is the Republican Party too that has this gun problem that they can't solve. And the other big difference is that Democrats have universally condemned the assassination attempt against
Yeah.
former President Trump. They've said, look, we hate Trump as much as anybody, but the way to solve that is at the ballot box. We do not want any attempts on Donald Trump's life. Political violence has no place in America. Pelosi's attacked.
Yeah.
Oh, ha ha! It's so funny. It must have been his gay lover that they got in. They got into a dispute, right? And then, like, Democrats actually care. Republicans are like they make it into a conspiracy theory every time it happens to every time it happens to a Democrat. Like, what the hell are we even doing here? Discussing this, and like I don't even know what else to say.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said earlier, Democrats had nothing to do with this. This was people who were in the Republican Party, whereas when Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, was attacked, that was directly incited by the Republican Party, and that was a Republican.
Yeah, and also, do you
And
really believe that Biden and Harris haven't had a temp life? You just haven't heard about them because they've been thwarted long before it got close to actually working.
yes, because you
That's
don't talk about these things
yeah.
when they're
If
not.
unless you have read the Secret Service files, you cannot say that it's only Trump that's having
Which
assassination attempts
which
against him.
these Republicans in Congress, at least, do have access to.
Do
Some
they?
of them. Some of them do.
Probably, yeah. Especially
Um,
they are holding hearings about in Congress about the Trump assassinations. Like, I'm not
yeah,
saying it's not an important topic, but I have questions about the how partisan these hearings are going to be. Although I guess that's just Congress these days. By the way, they did actually fund the government. Congrats for doing the bare minimum, guys.
oh, they did.
Yeah, it's a
They
short-term funding, short-term,
shut down the
few
government.
weeks, but government will not shut down at the end of the month.
But hey, that may make Harris look too good.
Yeah, I know exactly. All right, moving on from there, guys. We still have so much to get to, and we've been recording for 45 minutes at this point.
Okay.
And so just real quick, in Nebraska, they're trying and failing, I'll add, to change the rules of their elections. One of the two states, along with Maine, that apportions their electors for two for the winner of the state and then one for the winner of each congressional district. Trying to change it so that it's all just now for the winner of the state. Like other states do now, they're trying to change this just less than 50 days before the election so that Trump was guaranteed to win all of those electoral votes. Looks like this plan, though, is failing. Just real quick, Zach, your thoughts on this.
I think it's sort of a just stupid act of desperation. I actually think it's kind of hilarious that, they're I think it really just shows how scared they are about this election, that they're
Yeah,
resorting to tactics like trying to change these laws in Nebraska that have been around for quite a while now. It, it's it's honestly it's sad. It's sad that this is what they've resorted to.
yeah. All right, we still got just a few political stories here before we get into the stat of the week and then sports. Let's start with New York Magazine reporter Olivia Nuzzi has been suspended from her job. She's been a controversial reporter for some of the things she's written about Biden, among others, uh, and controversial in a bad way. And now she's been suspended for some inappropriate behavior with one of her sources. Specifically, she sent nudes, Zach, to RFK Jr., somebody who is 39
Um,
years older than her. What do you make of that?
I mean, this guy's story just keeps getting better and better, or
It
more.
really does, doesn't it?
Um, like honestly, I just would have never guessed that a person like this exists. This, I swear, in about maybe 10, 20 years, maybe less, there's gonna be a movie about RFK
Yeah,
Jr. and it's going to be very funny.
yes. So can we just talk about for a second the fact that this woman, Olivia Nuzzi, who was engaged, ruined her engagement and her career
To
for
sleep with
RFK Jr.
or not sleep with this guy. Just send this guy nudes.
Yeah, I believe that's all that took place. That's all we know that took place.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's it's really just baffling the things that this guy does. It's it's unbelievable. The whole thing is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
just quickly,
Um,
just quick reminder, real quick, because we've made a promise on this podcast that we have to bring it up every single time we talk about RFK, which is
yeah,
that he
yeah.
has a brain worm.
Oh yeah,
At this
brain worm.
point, it hardly seems like the most uh
Crazy thing
odd
about him.
thing about him, but we
Yeah.
still have to bring it up. Just a podcast rule. So, um,
Imagine talking to somebody who didn't know anything about RFK and saying, "So yeah, yeah, this guy, he had a brain worm. It was eating his brain.
yeah.
But oh, that's not the weirdest thing about him."
No, it's not even top five.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's a weird guy. We do have to move on because a hurricane is heading towards Florida, set to make landfall, I believe, early Friday morning. As I think a Cat 4 hurricane. Um, what they're essentially saying is get out, or there's a pretty good chance that your life is in very serious danger. Obviously praying for the people of Florida as that hurricane barrels down onto them. But moving on from that, Zach, signs of a good economy. Um, the Fed has cut interest rates by half a point. Stock is up.
but
The
wait,
Dow is up to near record highs. The S&P 500 record highs. What do you make of this?
but wait, I was reading the New York Times, Colin, and they were saying that, there's a recession coming.
Oh, oh no. Oh no.
Um, yeah, it's I think that a lot of Americans have this misconception about the economy that it's still really bad. And it is true that prices are still high, but I mean, I've been watching the markets recently and I've been seeing them just soar. I mean,
Yep.
the S&P crossed 5,700. The Dow is, really, really good right now. Everything is really, really good right now.
Well,
Uh,
Zach, not
oh,
everything.
yeah. There's one thing that's particularly concerning.
Yeah,
Um,
the DJT stock for Trump media is at a 52-week low,
yeah, yeah.
which is
Yeah,
clearly a sign of a very, very bad economy, obviously. Oh, wait, no, it's just that Trump absolutely sucks at business. Oh, okay.
yeah. Wait, you're telling me that the guy who's filed for bankruptcy, like, what, how many times?
Six or
Uh,
seven, I think.
6 or 7 times is good at business? Is
Yeah,
bad at business, I mean?
yeah. Um, moving on from the economy. But back to Trump. His sentencing has been delayed again till after in the New York hush money case. This guy just keeps escaping justice, and it is infuriating. Um, but then back to the campaign. Some endorsements that uh the Harris Walls ticket got that are maybe somewhat surprising. Liz and Dick Cheney have endorsed Kamala Harris. And I think what's notable here is that people on the progressive side are going to say, well, we don't want Dick Cheney on it. Okay, look, your job
Mhm.
as somebody who's running for president is to appeal to as many people as possible. Find something in common with them. And Dick Cheney doesn't have this expectation that Kamala Harris is going to be this conservative president.
No.
He's voting for her because the issue that matters most to him, which is the issue of democracy, he aligns more with Harris than Trump on. He's not
Harris,
he's not he's not going to be demanding that Harris institute all these conservative policies, or at least he's not going to have the expectation that she's going to. The only expectation that he has from her is that she's going to preserve and uphold American democracy. That's
yes.
it. This is how politics, by the way, is supposed to work. I mean, it's not supposed to work that like Dick Cheney would suddenly be endorsing a Democrat, but it's supposed to work that people appeal to as many people as possible from across the political spectrum.
Yeah, which is why we should have um ranked choice voting or some
Well,
other.
sure, we should just not have a two-party system. That would be
Yeah,
ideal. Some
but
bad
the best
news.
way.
Some bad news from the state of Missouri. The state of Missouri has executed Marcellus Williams after the Supreme Court declined to intervene. This is a case of a man who was in back. The prosecution, the jury, the victim's family in this case
Yeah.
says that the conviction should be overturned.
And not only that, the DNA evidence
Yeah,
found on the scene of the crime did not match Marcellus
yeah.
Williams.
Do not link him to the crime.
Yeah.
There
No,
is no good evidence that Marcellus Williams committed this crime, and yet
and
it's too late. The governor of Missouri wasn't willing to do anything. He refused to pardon this guy. He's pardoned the guy that ran after protesters with an AR-15 back in 2020, but he didn't pardon this guy.
for one particular reason, he's a black man.
Exactly. Unjust
Uh,
convictions. Like, black people, I believe, represent over 50% of overturned convictions in this country.
yeah.
A disproportionate percentage of black people are given the death penalty in this country. And this is another one of somebody who, I mean, I'm personally of the opinion that it's not the government's job to execute anybody, but
No.
especially not somebody who we all but know is innocent, and there's is at very least significant doubt about the conviction.
Yeah,
And it's too
this
late.
was this was just a sad case all around. I mean, when even the family of the
Yeah,
person killed is saying, "Don't kill this man." I mean, you've done something wrong when
exactly.
he's on.
Exactly.
Um,
Okay. Um,
yeah.
we've got to move on to our final political story. Bit of a fun one. Yeah, so there's this card game that Zach, you and I, and frankly our entire podcast team know and love, Cards Against Humanity, who, just to mess with Donald Trump in 2017 to hinder his plan on the wall, bought a large chunk of land right on the US-Mexico border. And they didn't do anything with the land. They didn't try to develop it, but SpaceX then moved to right nearby, and apparently they've been trashing Cards Against Humanity's land. And so Cards Against Humanity has sued Elon Musk for $15 million.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
And can I just say that I mean, this is like the perfect thing to happen where they can sue Elon Musk. Like a card game like
Yes,
this, if you've ever played it, you can sort of assume that these people, you know, were probably just waiting for some sort of chance to do something like this. Like
exactly. Yes.
it's their golden opportunity to
Yep.
sue one of the biggest assholes in America, and I think it's great.
Yep. All right. Move on. Normally the time of the show where it's Charlie's Stat of the Week, but Charlie's not here, so it's once again this week Colin's Stat of the Week. Somewhat tough one for you today, Zach.
Oh
So
no.
um, Kamala Harris is looking to become the president, win a presidential election as the sitting vice president. Okay? So
Mm-hmm.
this begs the question. There have been 6 former vice presidents uh, that have won the presidency, not including those who have taken over after a
Ah,
resignation or death, such as, Lyndon Johnson winning in 64 after taking over in 3 following JFK, right?
and even if they get reelected.
Yeah, so it does not count. There have been 6 former vice presidents that have won the presidency, including 4 of them were sitting vice presidents at the time that they were elected president. So can you name the 4 sitting vice presidents who have been elected president, and then the 2 former vice presidents that have been elected president?
Well, I know former vice president. There's of course Richard Nixon.
Sure.
Under Eisenhower, he was
Yep.
vice. And then
You're gonna
of
feel like an
course
idiot if you don't get the other one of the vice
Biden.
presidents. Yep,
Biden.
Biden. Yep.
Yes.
So then 4 sitting vice presidents have won the presidency. Who?
Like the next term they won presidency.
They won the
Uh,
election. They won the presidential election while they were the sitting.
well, I hope adding to that list is Kamala Harris.
Sure.
Let's see. That one's a little more difficult. Are there some from like way back?
Yeah, so there were 3 from the 19th century and 1 from the 20th century.
3 from the 19th century.
And it was the one from the 20th century was late in the 20th century.
Um,
Late 20th century, Zach. Late 1900s. There's one.
was it Bush?
The first Bush, yes, was the
First,
sitting vice president. Now, there's 3 from the first half of the 19th century or earlier, actually.
and I've already gotten Nixon.
Yeah,
Uh,
he was a former vice president. These are the sitting vice.
oh right, right. Yeah. Um,
2 of these I
huh.
think you should get. One of these I think is really difficult.
Eisenhower wasn't a vice. I don't. Wait.
19th century. Eisenhower was in the
Oh,
1950s. We're
19.
talking about before
Oh,
1850. All 3 of these were before 1850.
oh, I thought you said 20th.
No,
Before 1850. Oh wait. Taft? No, no, no.
no.
He was in the
Taft was
government.
well after 1850. 1850 was pre-Lincoln.
Oh,
All
pre-Lincoln.
all of these were pre-Lincoln.
Oh, there's some founding fathers aren't
Yes.
there? Yeah.
Yes.
Um, was John Adams vice?
Yeah, John Adams was George
Yeah,
Washington's vice president. Yeah.
right. That's I vaguely remembered that. Um,
Who was John Adams's vice president?
was it? It was Jefferson?
Yeah, it was Jefferson. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, Jefferson. So it was him, Jefferson, and I don't think you'll get the Martin Van Buren, who served as Andrew Jackson. He won the election in 36.
Yeah,
That's
I
that.
definitely would have gotten that one.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
move on from politics to sports, and we'll start with the NFL. And what's wild is we have not actually talked about the NFL since the season started. And right now, as of this recording, we're not going to take into account the Thursday night game that just finished. We're just going to talk about the first 3 weeks of the season. 5 3-0 teams. 3 in the AFC: the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Bills. Chiefs, not a huge surprise, right? They've gotten some penalty help in a couple of their games, and they haven't looked great, but they've looked good enough to beat Baltimore, to beat Cincinnati, to beat Atlanta. Buffalo. Buffalo may look like the team to beat at the moment. Seriously, they look great. Josh Allen looks like an MVP candidate. Yeah, we say that every year, but for real this year. And then Pittsburgh looks good, and at least they will until Russell Wilson comes back. In the NFC, though, undefeated teams, the Vikings, which came out of nowhere, and then a team that, sure, their schedule hasn't been difficult. They've played Denver, New England, and Miami without Tua, but the Seattle Seahawks, 3-0, looking to go into Detroit Monday Night Football this week, hopefully make that 4-0. By the way, regarding the Dolphins, we'll talk about the Tyreek Hill arrest and the Tua Tagovailoa concussion issue next week when Charlie is back. Definitely still relevant at the moment, especially with Tua still out. But Miami looks to be in trouble. Cincinnati, though, and Jacksonville, both teams thought of somewhat highly heading into the season. They both have been bad, both 0-3, and both a bad 0-3. Those teams really need to find a way to turn it around. As for the rest, Jaden Daniels looks good as the quarterback of the Commanders. The Eagles look fine. It's honestly kind of difficult to know what to make of them. The Jets, they look fine. 49ers, they're really banged up, and it shows. Shows that Brock Purdy cannot do it without a bunch of his personnel. Now, to be fair, he's left with not much in the way of offensive personnel, but um, I don't think you can just say, "Oh yeah, no, he's bad. It's just because of the talent." No, I mean, you play with the talent that's around you. Sure, maybe he needs more talent, but around him. But I think he's still a pretty good quarterback. Bo Nix has not looked good. Caleb Williams has not looked great. That Bears offense in general. I mean, as a Seahawks fan, we knew that Shane Waldron absolutely sucks, and should not be the offensive coordinator anywhere. But apparently, the Bears had different feelings on because, of course, they did. Texans and CJ Stroud, they look good. Saints look surprisingly good. Derek Carr looks great. Anthony Richardson for the Colts. It's been interesting because he can complete throws that almost no one else can, but it seems like he just can't complete the easy ones. And that's proven to be very difficult for him and for this Indianapolis Colts team so far this season, as they're sitting at 1-2 at the moment. Packers, Malik Willis actually looks decent for the injured Jordan Love, of course. Falcons look okay. Who else should we touch on? The Panthers are awful. Benching Bryce Young was the right decision. I don't know what you do with him. I really don't. It's a difficult situation because is it just a problem with him on the Panthers? I mean, I think they should try to give him an opportunity elsewhere. But I mean, they should probably try to trade him. But I think it's also really just the mark of a very badly run franchise. And Dallas has been interesting because they have not been great. They did win on Thursday Night Football this week, so they're 2-2, but they're a rough 2-2, a couple bad losses. Not to bad teams per se, but the way that they lost was bad. Detroit looks good, but not great. I mean, the thing is, I feel like the NFC is so confusing because the teams we thought could be contenders, to some extent the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Lions, the Eagles maybe, right? None of them have looked great. So who is it? Are the Vikings really going to be a team? Are the Seahawks really going to be a team that seriously contends? Is the NFC South better than we thought, with the exception of the Panthers? I mean, that's absolutely possible. So there's been a lot of upsets early in the season. It really is confusing as to who is good so far in the NFL. I think we definitely need time to really figure that out. Now, in college football, there's a lot to figure out because Michigan, bad loss to Texas, big rebound against USC. I think the key point here, though, Texas looks every bit the number one team in the country at the moment. Notre Dame, a bad loss early to Northern Illinois. Before this current era, that would ruin their playoff chances. And I feel like people say, well, they still have a chance. That's exactly the problem with the 12-team playoff. As a college football team, if you lose to Northern Illinois University, that should end your college football playoff chance. You're just cheapening the regular season. You're making it so that that's not a season-ending. That should be a season-ending loss. Now, the SEC looks great so far, unsurprisingly. Washington State looks great. Really wish we could have Charlie on here so I could go bragging about how Washington State beat the Huskies in the Apple Cup. But Zach, I guess I can brag about it to you since you also like UW.
UW still, they just had a hiccup. Okay, they'll be back.
It was a pretty big hiccup. Florida State is interesting. Is the best. Both the Florida and Florida State need to fire their coaches. I'm sorry, they do. Nebraska, they had a good chance to get their first ranked win in a long time last week, and they blew it in overtime to Illinois. Syracuse lost at home to Stanford, right? The ACC is wild. Cal has been good until they lost to 0-3 Florida State. Missouri, this is back in the SEC, barely beat Vanderbilt. Obviously, we have the huge showdown this week, Georgia and Alabama. But then the Big 12 is interesting too, because Kansas State, a bad loss to BYU. Utah maybe looks like the favorite now Oklahoma State, which was a pretty close game, pretty good game. Clemson, obviously the bad loss to Georgia, but they've looked good since then. They destroyed NC State, who we thought could be good this year. Destroyed them. Northern Illinois, they've since lost to Buffalo in their first game since beating Notre Dame. That's a bad loss on their schedule. Who's going to be the team from the group of 5 to make the college football playoff? We thought maybe it could be UNLV. Well, now UNLV's quarterback is out because of unfulfilled NIL commitments, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day at this point. So, I mean, the college football landscape is just confusing at this point. North Carolina got destroyed by James Madison 70-50, which is an absurd score. Cincinnati looks weird this year in the Big 12. But at this point, as I look at the rankings, you can't convince me that there's not going to be like 6 at least SEC teams in this year's college football playoff, right? Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Ole Miss. Which of those teams is missing the playoff? I don't see one. All those teams should make the playoff. Sure, they play each other a bunch, but I mean, those are just going to be some exceptional games that we have coming up in the next few weeks. It is going to be a good college football. It already is. Some great games every week so far this year. Some big games coming up this week. We'll of course talk more about week 5 next week on this podcast. But where do we go from here? So do a quick update on the Pac-12. They are sort of reforming because they're up to 7 teams now, as they've added a bunch of the states from the Mountain West. But now the Mountain West, they're not up to the 8 teams that they need. The Pac-12 still doesn't have the 8 teams that they need. Media rights still very much in the balance. So conference realignment never sleeps, I guess. All of it still remains an open question. Let's talk quickly about the WNBA playoffs. First round, all sweeps. And some notable stuff that happened here. Because let's see. Let's start with that Atlanta New York matchup. The Liberty look like, sorry, they do. Vegas, they looked good against the Storm. Sweep there. But then Caitlin Clark, obviously not great for ratings, goes out in the first round. Sun, look, I don't want to make this all about Caitlin Clark when we talk about the WNBA, because there are other great players. The Sun and Alyssa Thomas, they played great. But the Fever will be back. The Fever are going to be a very good team that is on the rise. So great first step this year. Caitlin Clark winning Rookie of the Year, I believe getting 4th in MVP voting. Huge future for her in the league, right? With Diana Taurasi, with what she said about how it would be a big learning curve adjusting to the WNBA. Like, did she say reality is coming or something like that? Reality came for Diana Taurasi. Caitlin Clark looks fine in this league. It took a few minutes to get comfortable, but she looks fine. And now Diana Taurasi possibly retiring now, which of course that is huge news. Just an absolute legend of the sport, probably the best women's basketball player of all time. Unclear yet if she's officially done, but now we're into the finals of the WNBA playoffs. As we go ahead and we get closer to the finals, semis are Vegas, New York, rematch of last year's WNBA finals, and then Connecticut, Minnesota. So gearing up for a fun finish to the postseason. Let's talk some MLB quickly. Zach, bye Mariners.
Poor Mariners. They didn't make it again.
Look, this was a monumental collapse for the Mariners. Like, even as Mariners fans, with what we're accustomed to, this was a monumental collapse. 10 games up in the division, end up not even making the playoffs. You practically hand the division to the Astros. Like, what are you even doing?
That's just
It's a complete just failure of management, of ownership to invest in this team.
What do you think it was that caused it?
Ownership absolutely loves the fact that the Mariners keep getting eliminated in the last week of the season. That's not an accident. When it happens this often, it's not an accident. They build a team where the goal is just to be competitive just long enough to keep the fans interested. That's all. That's their goal. And if they occasionally make the playoffs, great. Then they get some extra money. But they're not willing to spend the money to make this be a great team, a team that can contend for World Series championships. They're just
So you,
willing to spend just enough money to make this team have a chance.
so you think it's a money problem that
Oh yeah.
it's yeah.
And that's tough because it's not a problem that's fixable just by firing. Telling you to sell the team, John Stanton. Just like we're telling the A's owner to sell the team. More on the A's in a second. By the way, my prediction came true. A's finished ahead of the Angels this. By the way, Angels now franchise record for losses, and is it not embarrassing when you get swept by the White Sox? The worst team of all time, or about to be when they lose their 121st game soon. They only have a couple more days to do it, but they're going to lose one of them. Is
Oh
that not
no.
embarrassing to get swept by that team?
Yeah,
I think
that's
it would be.
unfortunate.
Yeah, looking more at this playoff picture, divisions are almost all clinched. In fact, I believe the divisions are all clinched. Yeah, Phillies, Brewers, Dodgers, Astros, Guardians, Yankees. But then look at the wild card. It's still interesting. It's almost certainly going to be in the AL along with Baltimore, Kansas City, and Detroit, which what a run for those teams, especially Detroit. But really, both coming out of nowhere this year. Those have been fun teams to watch all year. And in the National League, it's going to be either the Mets, Diamondbacks, or Braves are going to miss the playoffs. It's going to be a fascinating end to the year for that because the Mets and the Braves, because of rainouts, they're going to have to play a doubleheader on Monday after which of them makes the playoffs or whether both of them could possibly make the playoffs over the Diamondbacks. So it really is a somewhat weird end to the finish in the National League. Now, I did quickly um, the Oakland A's. Why? The Oakland A's, as when we were recording this today, they played their final ever game at the Oakland Coliseum. Their final ever game in the city of Oakland before they relocate first to Sacramento and then in theory to Las Vegas if they can get that ballpark built. The Oakland A's have 57 years of great history in the Oakland A's are an important team to the city of Oakland. And then John Fisher came along and bought that team. And John Fisher has done nothing but tear that team to the ground, seemingly with the intention of moving them out of the city. He has never acted in good faith. And that's why A's fans have not really turned up to games much. They have a rotting stadium and a bad team to go with it. Would you turn up? I wouldn't. So
No.
when we say, though, that Oakland has a bad fan base, no, they don't. Oakland has a very, very passionate. The people of Oakland are very passionate about baseball. They're passionate about the Oakland A's. And you are taking all of that from them. And this is where, like today, just watching the end of that game today, it's where the anger in me really started to turn away from anger. Not that that anger still isn't there, and it very much should be. Everybody should still be furious at John Fisher, furious at Major League Baseball. But it's where it turned from that into more sadness, right? Because I mean, look, I come from a city that's lost their basketball team, and they lost it in what, 2008 or something? They lost it long enough ago. I have no memory of the Seattle Super. I
Yeah.
was not able to grow up on Seattle Supersonics basketball.
Yeah,
And there was a
neither was
chance, if not for the absolute miracle run that was 1995, that the Mariners end up leaving the city of Seattle after that, and I don't get to grow up on Mariners baseball. And I mean, it sounds somewhat trivial, but like I think we forget just like how important baseball and sports in general can be to people's lives. I can say with near certainty, if the Mariners were not here in Seattle, my life would be completely different. The
yeah.
Mariner, when I started going to Mariners games back many, many years ago, um, that's what got ended up getting me into baseball. That's what got me into playing baseball. I loved playing baseball. It got me into that. That is probably what fed into my love of a lot of sports. The only sport I watched before baseball, football, probably fed into my love of a lot of sports. And if not for that, and if not for my connection to the Mariners, I'm probably sitting here recording a podcast about sport.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you can underestimate the impact that a team can have on so many people. And that's why like my heart breaks for all the kids they're gonna have to grow up in the city of Oakland not having a baseball team to root for. but
Yeah.
also for all the adults who grew up on Oakland A's baseball and now have lost their team because because a couple of greedy people decided to take it from them. And then to the kids who got maybe pulled out of school today, maybe just to see their team just play one more time, maybe not even knowing that it was the final time we get to see the team play. Because for so many kids, there's just and adults to everybody, there's just so many people that are losing something by baseball leaving Oakland, a great sports town, which has now lost all three of their professional sports teams in just a matter of years.
Wow.
It's really it's I mean, sure, the Warriors they all that they did is they moved to Bay, but then the Raiders moving to Vegas, the Theory joined soon, but temporarily moving to Sacramento first. Like it's heartbreaking for all the people there. And I mean, you could see just how much it mattered to the people there at the ballpark today. 47,000 strong packed that ballpark today. In the past, when we've
Wow.
seen teams in various leagues relocate, their attendance for the final game has been abysmal. But the people of Oakland today came out and just showed just how much they loved this team. And the entire narrative that ownership has been trying to sell behind why they're leaving is that they don't have a fan base. The A's fans have proven just how much they care about this team just by showing up and then just by being there, by being into every pitch you couldn't have chosen the better game to end baseball's run in Oakland on, and and then staying at the ballpark. And frankly, nobody left their seat for a good half hour at least after that game. I mean, it was a special day in Oakland, but the other people that I haven't even mentioned yet that my heart like really breaks for, all the staff in Oakland, all the security, all the ushers, all of the food salespeople, all of the grounds crew, all the people that come to work every day to produce baseball in Oakland for the people. They're going to be out of a job, and the A's are trying to deny them pensions.
Oh, wow.
And so my heart breaks for those people. Their head groundskeeper has been working on the grounds every single day at the Coliseum for 31 straight years. He's
Wow.
now out of a job.
And
The
possibly
the
not
num
getting
Yeah, the number of people that this impacts, it's probably in the thousands, and just the number of people that like have a financial impact. And the A's ownership has proven that they don't care so long as they can build their stadium in anywhere that's not Oakland, seemingly just to give the middle finger to the fan base that has supported them for 57 years strong. And
wow.
so, yeah, I have it's a sad day in baseball. Um, it's completely caused by bad ownership. And
By billionaires who want more billions.
exactly, exactly. Moving on real quick. U.S. Open. Yes, we haven't recorded the podcast since that ended. Two Americans, one on the men's side, one on the women's side, made the final. Jessica Pegula for the women's side, Taylor Fritz for the men's side. Big breakthrough for Taylor Fritz on the men's side. First major final since 2009. Both Americans lost in straight sets and eventual winners. Arina Sabalenka, who was the top hardcourt player on the women's side, and then Yannick Sinner, the top hard player on the men's side. So not really any major surprises there, but still some big wins for both of those players and some big breakthroughs for a couple of. And then Charlie's not here, so we don't have to talk about Formula One, but it's kind of exciting now. I don't watch it, but just looking at the standings, Red Bull's not in first championship, and Lando Norris from McLaren is trying to chase down Verstappen. Is it likely that it'll get there? Probably not. Charlie's would be the expert on this, but I would say it's possible. So I think that there could be an exciting finish to the Formula One. You know, you're interested in watching cars race. But that is gonna do it for the podcast, with the exception of I want to close it out by remembering a legend who just died just in the last couple of weeks. Uh, James Earl Jones died.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously legendary actor known specifically for his voice. Zach, I'll let you speak on him first because I'm guessing that the main place you know from is yours, the voice of Darth Vader. Let you say your piece about him first.
I mean, I know him from many things. But yeah, of course, the main one is Star Wars, and just he was such an iconic actor, iconic person, um, really just a beloved Hollywood star. And honestly, personally, I really enjoyed his acting. He's, definitely up there among my favorite actors and favorite people in Hollywood. Um, he just had a career filled with really incredible movies, lots of hits. One of my favorite comedies is Coming to America. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. Um, and yeah, I just thought he was both a great actor and a great person, and it's really sad that um we no longer have him.
Yeah, I mean, let me be completely honest. When I saw that he died, Darth Vader in Star Wars was actually not the first movie that came to mind for me with him. It was Field of Dreams, and this is just because Field of Dreams is such a I think such a special movie for me. Because of my deep love and connection with the sport of baseball, and so it's just meaningful to me, and the role that he played in that movie as Terrence Mann is incredible, and of course that speech that he gave in that movie is just it's one of the all-time movie speeches, probably the most meaningful for me, and just the way he delivered it too. I'll read it quickly. I cannot possibly read it as well as he can. I've always said there's exactly two people that can read these words well. It's James Earl Jones and it's Vin Scully, who are now both sadly dead. But it's just an amazing section. So Ray, people will come, Ray. They'll come to Iowa for reasons they can't even fathom. They'll turn up your driveway, not knowing for sure why they're doing it. They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the past. Of course, we won't mind if you look around, you'll say. It's only $20 per person. They'll pass over the money without even thinking about it, for it is money they have and peace they lack. And they'll walk out to the bleachers and sit in shirt sleeves on a perfect afternoon. They'll find they have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines where they sat when they were children and cheered their heroes. And they'll watch the game, and it'll be as if they dipped themselves in magic waters. The memories will be so thick they'll have to brush them away from their faces. People will come, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, it's a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that was once good, and it could be again. Oh, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come. So, at the end of the day, just rest in peace to just a legend of film, of voice acting, one of the most iconic voices. That particular quote, I think that particular passage from the movie means just so much to me as a baseball fan, and I think that it so much of that is just the way that he delivers it. And so rest in peace
Yeah,
is all I can say.
yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Okay. We've been recording for a long time, Zach. Um
Yes, we
uh
have.
so this might set the record for the longest episode. It has finally come to an end. Thanks for sticking with us for the entirety of it. Make sure to subscribe episodes coming out every single week. Where every podcast, visit our website, cctalks.com, to learn everything about the show. Call us with your questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. Follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. Follow Charlie at Charlie. Join our Discord server, cctalks.com/Discord. All description below. Big thanks again to Zach for guest hosting today's episode of C&C Talks. But for now, for Zach, who's also a production designer, for our producer Morris, for Charlie, Colin, we'll see you next week.